G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. So on this video today, I thought I'd have a sit down and chat with a heavy debate that's currently going on with the footy world of the possibility, or pretty much almost certainty now, of the AFL introducing a mid-season trade period starting as early as 2024, so next year. Certainly is a lot of debate around this, a lot of people love the idea, a lot of people hate the idea, and I certainly have had a mixed opinion about this idea and this whole concept for a little while now, but I'm starting to lean towards more of I think this could possibly work. So yeah, in this video today, I'll just give my thoughts on it, explain maybe how the concept would work, and yeah, simply how the mid-season trade period could work, with a lot more things to discuss during the AFL season. But first, if you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, that'd be heavily appreciated. And let's get into it. So the mid-season trade period, if you do not know, there is pretty much now certainty, or it is reported there is most definitely going to be a mid-season trade period starting in 2024. So pretty much, it's quite simple. There will be a designated period around the mid-season draft, where clubs can do what they do during the off-season, have a designated time to have players move from club to club. So it just gives opportunity for players. Right off the bat, a lot of people aren't too happy with this, just because it just feels a little bit unnecessary, making clubs have extra sort of power with their list management during the middle part of the season. It can disrupt some clubs' lists, and especially for poor teams, it can really hurt them. I do understand that maybe there is a really good player at a poor performance side. He can through the mid-season trade period go to another more successful club running during the season. So it can hurt clubs. I do understand that, but I personally feel there are plenty of positives about this. It gives the opportunity for maybe depth players that aren't getting a go at a club to maybe move to a side that has opportunity. A good example last year, maybe someone like a 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 from the Sun, from the Lions last year. He could have moved to the Suns during this mid-season trade period, let's say. And if I want to add in another example, a perfect looking one, maybe Paddy Dow from Carlton, cannot crack into the Carlton side, but has shown form in the VFL. So maybe he could go towards someone like the West Coast Eagles that need help in the midfield, or another club that's probably wanting to improve their midfield stock. So I think it can really benefit a few of those players that maybe are good enough at a different club that want to do it, sort of not having to wait till the end of the year, and do it during a time where clubs are really needing wins and really needing impact players. So it can benefit in that sort of area. I personally feel right off the bat, this trade period that is going to take place, or possibly going to be taking place, I don't feel, it's going to be quite a low frequency sort of amount of trades, I do feel. I don't think this will be any top end players moving to particular clubs during this time, because it just feels like a bit unnecessary and a bit unrealistic. Obviously clubs want to save their picks, and their draft picks and all that whatnot, and probably their main list management moves to the off season, because that's where all the stuff happens with the draft and all that whatnot. So I think just this mid-season period gives clubs opportunity to maybe move a few depth players around, gives the clubs opportunity to delist players and pick up delisted players like during the off season. So I think when you look at the mid-season trade period and think about it a little bit more, it gives many advantages during an AFL season. I'll start with the first one, where I think why this could really work. The mid-season trade period, I think, gives the AFL enough of an excuse to have one big buy round. Again, people aren't really for the idea, totally understandable, but if you just look at the club's poor records the last few years post-buy, they haven't really been very good coming off a buy versus another team who hasn't come off a buy. It gives clubs an even playing field. You just have one whole week off with one buy round, but during that week, now I'm not really a big fan of the thought idea as well. Like just having one big week off footy during the middle part of the year, it can, it isn't probably what fans would agree. It can hurt finances, everything. Just having a massive hold and play during the mid-season sounds a bit off-putting, but I sort of am for the idea if we have something during that week. And I think during that week, we have the mid-season trade period and the mid-season draft. There's plenty of stuff happening in the footy world during that week off. It of course as well gives clubs and players, the players and clubs would love it, because it gives the clubs and players an even playing field. Just having that one whole bye week off, because it's inevitable. All clubs and teams need bye rounds. So yeah, just having that one whole week off, buy round. During that buy round, we have the trade period and the mid-season draft. I think it can really, really work. So let's say this concept would actually come into play. We'd have one whole week. So what would sort of be the categories that clubs would be able to make their lists, management moves? Or probably just explain, in detail what I think could happen. Well, first off, clubs will be able to delist players. So maybe if there's a few players on a list that aren't carrying their weight, or they're just getting injured, and they know, or at least the list bosses know that they want to get rid of them, that could be a time period where they can delist players, free up spots towards the off season, and maybe pick someone up during this week off. So I think making the delisted moves would come into play, of course, throughout the whole week. So I don't think it's irrelevant going into too much detail when it would be. Probably just Monday to Sunday. I don't know, just during the whole buy round, the whole trade period would occur. So this gives the opportunity for clubs to make their moves, to poach players. Again, I think it would be quite a low frequency sort of trade period throughout the middle of the year. We wouldn't see too many high end moves, like, you wouldn't see, any big moves. You usually see like a Taranto or Dunkley or anything. I think that wouldn't really make too much sense, because, it's important for clubs to keep players and to keep their momentum going. So I think, again, probably see a lot of depth players. Maybe we'd see players like a 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐵, or maybe someone like from an example from last year, 𝐷𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐵𝗋. Maybe those are the kind of players that could go during the middle of the year, because they know they want to move towards another city. So maybe that could come into play. But yeah, the most realistic thing I can see with this trade period, if it does happen, is we just see depth players. So, players that aren't getting a game, maybe some young players. Let's have a look at like Port Adelaide, for example. They are in probably desperate need of ruckman at the moment. Maybe they could delist one of their ruckmans. I don't know. But, lice it down for a month. Obviously, Dante Vicentini doesn't look ready. I don't know what's going on with Hayes or 𝐓𝐡𝐞. Maybe they could try and poach another ruckman from another club. So yeah, there are many different scenarios to think about with a mid-season trade period, but I just think the most realistic point you can see is probably just a few depth players moving around. Maybe a player wanting to get more opportunity at a new club. Wouldn't be anything too crazy, because then again, remember, clubs wouldn't want to throw around the draft picks and so much. They just want to wait to the off season. So yeah, probably just to fix up a few list needs and everything we'd see during the trade period. So I don't think there'd be too many moves. I do have to say, I'm pretty sure a lot of list bosses and a lot of play agents are for the idea, just because it makes it more fast paced, the industry, and of course the list management process of players being able to move to clubs at a bigger and higher amount of opportunity. So we'll move on now to the next category. So during this whole week, we'd have off, of course, the mid-season draft. Let's not forget about that. If you don't know, the mid-season draft, basically players who were eligible from the draft last year, they didn't get picked up throughout that whole off-season period, so not the national draft, rookie draft, pre-season supplementary selection period, they did not get picked up then. Obviously, they filter through the mid-season draft process. And of course, all the players that have been on an AFL list before, that are currently not on an AFL list, they can be picked up through the mid-season draft. So usually we have that on a Wednesday or something, but I think if we'd have this, I'd probably have it on a Monday. I'll explain in a little bit why this leads me on to my next point of having just a delisted player pickup period. I don't know what we call it. Probably something similar to sort of like free agency, where teams can have the availability or opportunity to pick up, delisted players that were on an AFL list before that didn't get picked up in that mid-season draft, and yeah, have the chance to go towards a club. And again, probably wouldn't see too many moves happen during this period, maybe. So it just gives clubs an opportunity to have a little bit of time during this whole bye week bonanza to pick up a few mature age players, or two if they are in desperate need of one, and just to fix maybe a few needs and a few list problems during the season. Now, continue on with this category. A lot of pundits and a lot of people have made the statement by saying this whole free agency delisted period, we could possibly have it throughout the whole AFL season. Now, I'm probably against that idea, sort of, because it probably just gives clubs a bit too much power and leverage with their list management. Like, they can just simply, if this was to happen, any club could just go out and take, a player who was on an AFL list before. They can just snap them up within an instant. I still feel like there's got to be a designated period for players to be picked up, and it sort of defeats the purpose of having a mid-season draft. I feel like if we have a mid-season draft, we've got to have the mid-season draft first. So all these players that are eligible for the mid-season draft, they get picked up through that period. If they're no good, they filter through after the mid-season draft starts the delisted free agency period. So probably from after the mid-season draft starts the free agency delisted period and goes until the end of the buy round. Now, what happens if there are particular players that are looking very good in a VFL or a waffle side that don't get picked up in the mid-season draft? Where will they go? Are they maybe eligible during this whole buy round to get picked up? I'd probably say no, because that sort of defeats the purpose of the draft. I'd probably think it's better that they just, gear up for the rest of the year at their particular club, get primed up and continue improving their craft and getting stronger, and, trying to gain eligibility for the actual draft, and they have a chance to get picked up in the off season. So again, I feel the introduction of this whole concept is very good, but we don't want to make it, I personally feel, there doesn't want to be too much power or leverage gain for clubs to just go and pick up whoever they want. There's just got to be a certain amount of criteria when it goes to picking up players. There's got to be designated time periods, and with this concept explained, so one whole bye round, we'd have the mid-season draft at the start of the week. After the mid-season draft starts the delisted free agency period, where clubs can go and pick up and fill in needs with picking up players who have played in an AFL list before. And of course, during this whole week, we have the mid-season trade period. So yeah, there's a lot explained with that whole period. It's obviously quite overwhelming thinking about the whole topic and what could happen. There's probably a lot of people who probably don't agree with this and do disagree. That is totally understandable. I just thought I'd give my thought process and 2 cents on how this would work. Obviously, if this is to come into play, this might not work. The concept I've given, it might not, turn out to be like this at all. But I just feel like, giving a think about it, this would probably work the best way, because having mid-season trade period would allow the AFL to have one whole bye round, which would benefit the clubs and players with an even playing field. So I feel like, yeah, just the introduction of this, seems to, really help out a few other problems and controversial topics with an AFL season like the bye rounds. But yeah, it just gives play agents and players and AFL, the AFL, a better opportunity, I do feel, with list management. Adds a more fast-paced variant towards the whole industry of list management and all that whatnot. And yeah, it gives more opportunity for players to get picked up and to move, to have a high desirable amount to move clubs during the middle part of the year. But yeah, plenty of pros and cons to it. So yeah, still is a debatable topic, but I think can possibly work with those changes and the concept explained. So quickly, just to recap again and pretty much explain my concept in a few simpler, more better way. We'd have one whole big bye round where all clubs and players don't play for one whole week of footy. So maybe round 13, round 14, I'm not too sure. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be exact. But Monday, right off the bat, we'd have the mid-season draft. So pretty much works how it does now. Players that were eligible in last year's draft and get picked up in the off-season have the opportunity to be picked up through that. Now, there are still a plenty amount of players that are probably good enough to warrant a spot on an AFL list, but if they don't get picked up in the mid-season draft, they can filter through towards the delisted free agency period that occurs at the start of the end of the draft. So for the players that have played on an AFL list before, they can be picked up by a club. For the players that were looking pretty good to be picked up by a club that weren't taken in the draft, they just filter through and continue their season and finish off their season at their club and just prime themselves up towards being eligible to the end of the year draft. And then throughout the whole week, we do have the trade period. So yeah, just to recap again, I don't think there'd be too many crazy moves. Probably just see a lot of depth moving moves, and probably just a few list need moves we'd probably see. So nothing too crazy, but it does really help out, I think, clubs that are looking to make a few changes on their list that can really help them maybe bolster up the ladder or keep their spot in the top 4, let's say. I think it can really help clubs. So yeah, pretty debatable topic, but I think it can really work if it does actually come to play. So everyone, that is the end of today's video. Thank you very much for tuning into the video. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think of your thoughts on the mid-season trade period. Would it work? Would it not work? I feel it could with the concept I've explained, but yes, a lot of people can disagree with it. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you fellas think in the comments down below. Once again, everyone, thank you very much for tuning into today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That'd be heavily appreciated. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.